Muted.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the AFIMAC Getting from Point A to B, Mitigate Cargo Crime at Your Facilities and En Route webinar. My name is Ron Hartman, and I am a Director of Security Solutions with AFIMAC. At my side, I have my colleague Mike Husnick, Director of Operations for AFIMAC, and it's our pleasure, of course, to host this webinar today. Before we start, let's take care of a couple of housekeeping items. First, just to let everyone know, all participants have been placed on mute. And second, during the presentation, you will be able to submit any questions you have using the questions dialog on your control panel. We'll take some time at the end of the presentation to answer them. Okay, so let's begin. Over the course of the next 45 to 50 minutes, I'd like to share the following with you. Sorry about that. For today's presentation, I'd like to cover the following topics. I'll spend some time covering, providing an overview of cargo crime. I'll share some recent statistics and findings about the type of commodities that are frequently being stolen, which types of cargo crime are most dominant, and where the crime most often occurs. Our clients in trucking, logistics, and distribution have found it valuable to know more about how well their security procedures protect them. So today I'd like to talk briefly about the components of an effective security audit or assessment. And we all know that it's a great deal easier to prevent the crime than it is to solve it. So I'd like to share with you some proactive measures you can consider to address the findings from an audit that will help to prevent cargo crime, and what you and your drivers can do in response to a crime that will assist in the investigation and recover of the stolen assets. So why don't we let's begin here. Trucking is responsible for transporting a significant amount of consumer goods and products in Canada as well as in the United States. The rapidly escalating crime of cargo theft is believed to be costing consumers and the Canadian economy an estimated $5 billion a year, with the GTA being the largest cargo crime area. This area is known as the Shopping Triangle, an area encompassing Kitchener-Waterloo to the west, the GTA, Peel and Halton regions to the north, and Durham region in the east. This area rivals all other major transportation hubs and supply chain crime areas in Western Canada, Montreal, as well as Los Angeles, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Miami in the U.S. In a recent article published by Trucking Canada, Marsh Canada's Vice President Greg St. Croix is quoted as saying, "We know that over $500,000 worth of property disappears every day in the Greater Toronto area alone. In the U.S., an estimated $30 billion in cargo is stolen annually, but we may be only seeing the tip of the iceberg as many cargo thefts go unreported." Cargo theft is one of the most lucrative criminal activities in Canada, but it rarely makes the headlines. For a myriad of reasons, fleets have their reasons for keeping a lid on the problem, ranging from insurance and fears of premium increases resulting from claims to carriers, to carrier credibility and the loss of customer confidence. Nobody wants their customers to know that they are being ripped off. That leads to differing opinions on the extent of the problem. In the same article, Sergeant Rob Reuters of the RCMP's Crime Division suggests that rates of unreported cargo theft are in the 50 to 60% range, while Mr. St. Croix said that as many as 4 out of 5 incidents may go unreported. Either way, it is fair to say that the problem may be bigger than $5 billion in Canada. And over the past number of years, the level of violence continues to escalate, and this can result in serious injury or death if not handled properly. The global economic crisis has created a demand for black market goods. Most cargo crimes, cargo theft, and truck hijackings involve internal conspiracies. Typically, information on the load usually has been provided or leaked by an employee or someone in the know. In Canada and the U.S., the threat of cargo theft continues to grow due to increased organization and innovation on the part of cargo thieves. Canadian and U.S. authorities find that the thieves have broadened their geographical areas of operation and improved their methods to avoid detection and capture. Most of the stolen products is brought to ports and exported in ocean containers and sent to places in South America, Dominican Republic, and Costa Rica. The methods thieves use to obtain and deal with stolen goods vary in sophistication and execution. Cargo thieves target goods that they can easily broker through a fence or a person who knowingly buys stolen property to resell. They gather information on industrial parks and manufacturing or distribution facilities where such items are made or stored. Then they either break in or set up surveillance positions outside the facilities to monitor shipping operations and in particular the use of the trucks. Depending on which method the thieves use, they will wait for the moment of opportunity to strike. If their method of operation is to steal the truck, the thieves may have already secured a warehouse to temporarily store the freight, as well as taking possession of a stolen truck to attach to a stolen trailer. They may even have acquired another trailer to offload the cargo into. Thieves will also pay drivers at rest stops or fueling stations to give up their trucks, or they wait until the driver has left the truck and trailer unattended. Thieves are knowledgeable and trained in gaining access to the truck and manipulating the ignition system. Then they drive off with the stolen equipment. Another new tactic used by thieves is to break up stolen loads and store the goods in small storage units or even residential homes, rather than all in one warehouse. Breaking up a load makes full recovery harder to achieve, and hiding it in residential areas makes stakeouts, surveillance, and law enforcement activities more difficult. Once the stolen load is secured, thieves prepare stolen goods for resale. This may entail changing the packaging, relabeling the boxes, and even creating falsified bills of lading or customs paperwork to facilitate moving the stolen cargo out of the country. To the untrained eye, these actions look and feel like legitimate export processes. Organized crime syndicates have seen that cargo crime is a relatively low risk, low penalty, high reward, and there seems to be a market for anything somewhere in the world. That is appealing to many. Stolen cargo, the stuff that is loaded into trailers and hooked onto trucks, can range from high-priced electronics, cars, and booze to everyday products such as cheese, chicken wings, candy, toilet paper, and household detergents. Considering that 90% of all consumer goods spend at least some time on the back of a truck, it's a logical conclusion that all manner of goods are being stolen. The transportation industry is growing really quickly, so carriers are looking for additional yards or lots to supplement their increased inflow of business. Carriers use these lots, renting space for a short time while waiting to deliver goods to their final destination. These lots are usually set back from the main road, and they tend to be highly unsecure. On any given evening, there could be millions of dollars of consumer goods sitting inside the dozens of trailers parked on a lot. Thieves exploit these weak links in the supply chain. They prey on trailer yards with poor perimeter fencing, poorly guarded warehouses, and yards without technology such as closed-circuit TV or access control card gates. They also take advantage of truckers who fail to heed shipping rules, like making sure to fuel up before departing. In recent years, thieves have also become even bolder in carrying out the crime. According to a recent news release by LoJack SCI, the trend implies that organized crime rings are becoming increasingly bold in their pursuit of cargo, even stealing from secure areas with monitoring and surveillance systems. The fact that thieves are stealing goods increasingly from secured areas is further proof that cargo at rest is cargo at risk, even if the cargo is located in an area with some measures of physical security. Most recently, as recent as this past September, 16 tons of silver ingots in a shipping container worth an estimated $10 million was stolen from the busy port of Montreal in broad daylight. All of these concerns combine to create easy targets. Add to the mix broker fraud and double brokering, these are real problems too. With broker fraud, a carrier's information is used to fraudulently obtain a load off a load board. The thieves literally call ahead to any shipper and they say, hey, we're going to be a couple hours early, so can we pick up the XYZ load? They'll drive up to the dock, pick up the load, sign, and then depart with the load. And because the pickup looks legitimate, the event isn't even given a second thought until the legitimate company arrives or the load fails to arrive at its intended destination sometime in the future. Depending on the lag time, the freight could be anywhere by that time and before the absence raises an alarm. According to York Regional Police, the latest trend, especially over the holidays, is a rise in fictitious double brokering of freight. And here's how that works. Carrier A, a legitimate carrier, has freight to move. Carrier A identifies a partner, Carrier B, to assist them with the freight movement. Carrier B is a fake or otherwise an illegitimate carrier. Carrier B brokers the freight movement to another carrier, Carrier C, who is also a legitimate carrier. Carrier C picks up the freight on behalf of Carrier A but unknowingly delivers it to a fictitious address as provided by the illegitimate Carrier B. And in this situation, the legitimate receiver never receives the freight, but as a result of reduced staff or holiday hours, etc., the shipment is not even identified as missing for days and possibly weeks. Historically, cargo theft hasn't been a high priority for law enforcement. Because of that, very limited communication exists amongst police forces. Hopefully, new legislation will give the police the tools to raise the issue of auto theft, cargo theft, and freight theft. Unfortunately, the police can't lobby for more laws and stiffer penalties. It's the industry that has to give this a great big push. And at the same time, the industry has to start protecting itself much more vigorously. For a long time, the transportation industry maintained that cargo theft was a law enforcement problem. But law enforcement said, we're after the fact. It's an industry problem. Now, according to Sergeant Reuters, it's recognized that we have a problem, trucking, insurance, and law enforcement. Drivers are easy targets. They usually drive alone at all times of day on isolated roadways and at times in high-risk corridors or areas. As mentioned earlier, cargo theft is not reported for many reasons. One, given the choice between recovering their stolen cargo or being made financially whole, most cargo theft victims would likely choose the latter to avoid quality control issues. Stolen perishables or pharmaceuticals, for example, may not have been maintained in temperature-controlled environments, creating potential for a serious health crisis if the recovered product is sold. Two, another possible drawback to reporting cargo theft is the negative public perception. A carrier could lose current or potential customers who fear the company was involved in the theft or does not have proper security standards and protocols in place. And three, retailers may not want to acknowledge that they were the victims of cargo crime either. The perceived supply chain weakness could give its competitor or their competitor a strategic advantage. Even if the company involved has cargo insurance, it may find its policies insufficient. As cargo theft has increased and insurance companies have had to pay out more for losses, trucking policies have started to exclude protection or coverage if a truck is left unattended. The policies may also include geographic limitations, excluding theft losses occurring in areas with high theft rates. Additionally, the specific types of goods often targeted for theft may be excluded from coverage. And finally, some policies won't cover theft if the driver was involved, or won't cover the loss if it is a result of theft. So it's no small wonder that the number of cargo thefts is growing. In 2014, the Insurance Bureau of Canada handled around 200 cargo theft reports. In 2015, that number doubled to more than 400. and these crimes happen primarily in southern Ontario, and that's more than one per day. Cargo theft has certainly gained the attention of the media. CTV's W5 ran a documentary on cargo crime in November of 2015, and as part of the documentary, they interviewed Gary Robertson of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. According to Gary, the police called the months of November and December cargo theft season. That time of year leading up to Christmas is when thieves target tractor-trailer loads of valuable goods making their way to market on Ontario's highway. And while it peaks in December, cargo theft is a consistent problem costing Canadians billions of dollars each year. So let's take a look at some of the statistics. And all of these statistics that I'm going to provide were published in the third quarter of 2015 by FreightWatch International Supply Chain Intelligence Center. We live in a global marketplace. In today's world, the reality is that there is an underground market for any stolen product. According to the Center for Problem-Oriented Policing, statistical research proves that most thieves have an ever-changing hierarchy of goods that they prefer to steal. Research with thieves themselves reveal that they rarely hoard stolen goods for more than an hour or two at most, since they seek as near to immediate cash returns as possible, and they want to avoid getting caught in possession. This means that thieves are unlikely to steal and hoard goods that they do not currently know to be in high demand on the off chance that they will be saleable in the future. Food and drinks continue to be the most stolen product type, with 22% of the total thefts. Products that were primarily targeted in this category include meats and nuts. Electronics, whose largest share of thefts were comprised of televisions and displays, ranked as the second most stolen product type at 12%. Home and garden and auto parts tied for third with an 11% share. The largest share of home and garden came from appliances, and auto and parts thefts were dominated by tires. The simple fact is that once thieves get their hands on a load, selling it is easy. Organized crime groups know who is in the market for a particular product and often have buyers lined up to take it off their hands. Or the goods are sold piecemeal to corner stores and flea markets. Some buyers have no idea they're paying for a stolen product, while others don't even ask questions. There's an awful lot of willful blindness, according to Detective Sergeant LaSalle, the head of the Auto Cargo Theft Unit at York Regional Police. Right now, York Regional Police and Peel Region are the only two police forces in Canada with specialized cargo theft units. That's partly because the Greater Toronto Area is a transportation hub and there are more trucks and cargo to steal. When looking at the statistics for cargo theft by event, or rather the method of theft, theft of full truckload continues to be the most prevalent theft event, with 81% of all reported thefts. Additionally, thefts of full load represented an average loss of $206,000. Pilferage, a theft type that is utilized by organized crime thieves and opportunistic criminals alike, accounted for 9% of total thefts, a rise of 7% from the previous quarter, and an alarming 163% increase over the rate of pilferage in the third quarter of 2014. Pilferage is an interesting method of theft. It has typically been seen as less damaging to the supply chain, and is very likely the most underreported type of cargo theft due to lower values being dismissed as loading or inventory errors, or losses being considered less damaging than the pitfalls of rising insurance premiums or branded damage. While pilfering is the main method of theft for unorganized street-level criminals, organized cargo thieves also employ this tactic as a method of intelligence gathering, breaking into loads to verify the cargo, and then pulling back to judge response time and to determine what security measures may be in place. And finally, fictitious pickups, or as I mentioned earlier, double brokering, represents 5% of thefts, as did facility thefts. What is very interesting is that thefts from facilities had the highest average value of any theft type at $310,000. And when you drill down further to determine where cargo theft is occurring, the most prevalent location for large-scale thefts continues to be unsecured parking. identified at 82% of all reported incidents. Of these thefts, 26% occurred at public parking and another 16% from truck stops and roadsides. Thefts from warehouses and distribution centers came in second with 15% of thefts, and secured parking areas accounted for 3%. I'll provide some suggestions on how you can effectively deter thieves from targeting your property and loads in a couple of minutes. Okay, it's often said that it's easier, and I mentioned earlier, easier to prevent a crime than it is to solve it. So with that in mind, I'd like to share with you the components of an effective security audit or assessment that you can perform or engage a third-party security specialist to perform that will help identify ways that you can mitigate cargo theft. We advocate a deterrence-based approach to ensure the security of your facilities and the load that you are transporting. I will share some proactive measures you should consider to address key findings from an audit. And finally, I will provide some useful tools that we strongly recommend you share with your drivers because they should know, and should they ever be victim of a crime, it's important they know what they can do in response to the crime that will assist in the investigation and the recovery of the stolen goods. To be a good security auditor or surveyor, whether for crime prevention or at the crime scene, you have to be a good investigator. You must understand criminal methods of operation and the limitations of standard security devices. You must have developed the ability to visualize the potential for criminal activity, and you must think like a criminal. If you're not comfortable with this, we suggest engaging a security professional. A good audit or assessment covers the following: company and office procedures. Who has access to the load information? What cargo is being shipped and when? What is its value? What's the destination and what travel routes will be taken? Is your company CTPAT approved? And for those of you who are not familiar with that acronym, CTPAT is a voluntary supply chain security program led by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The letters stand for Customs, Trade, Partnership Against Terrorism. And do you meet then the CTPAT minimum security standards? HR procedures. What are the driver recruiting practices? How complete are your driver background checks? How often are drivers being audited? How is their performance? What is their attitude? What are their driving characteristics? And who are your supply chain partners? Is information from supply chain partners being reviewed and questioned? Is the documentation being reviewed? Bills of ladings, manifests, invoices, etc. Are they being reviewed to determine the routing? Are on-site visits or audits of the supply chain being conducted? And how frequent? Are your partners CTPAT approved? Do your partners meet applicable minimum security criteria? A good audit or assessment also covers yard protocols. Where and how the units are parked? Who moves them? Shippers? Do the receivers move them? Is it a shared yard or is it a private facility? Who has access to the yards? Other carriers? Other drivers? Are the loads kept overnight? Truck and trailer tracking during shipment? Is technology being used to secure the cargo? Do you have 24/7 knowledge of its whereabouts? What levels of communication do you have with the driver while en route? Is there an emergency or a panic button available? And then physical yard security. Do you employ static guards? Do you have an access control system? How well does it work? Is there video surveillance or video monitoring or unattended guard tours? Is there a perimeter fence? And are there any environmental deterrents? A thorough security audit or assessment identifies gaps or areas of concern in your company's security program or procedures. From the audit, companies can take a number of actions to improve facility and vehicle security. From implementing security devices and technologies to creating common sense security practices, here are a number of proactive measures you should consider. The use of technology. Consider state-of-art technology. There is equipment available that is specifically designed for cargo tracking. And this approach then provides multi-levels of protection and redundancy. And because of these levels of protection, alerts can be sent at the time of breach or when a load has strayed from its designated route, before the load has been dropped off at an unsecured lot or a warehouse or is being broken down and repackaged. With this measure in mind, the goal is to monitor trailer loads from the point of origin to destination using technology and people, and there are two objectives. Provide storable data that tracks cargo movement through the normal operation, and in the event, provide tools to raise an alarm and initiate recovery procedures. If an attempt is made to steal a load, those monitoring the shipment are alerted in several ways. A panic alarm can be activated by the driver. GPS technology can send GPS location of the trailer to the monitoring station if the seal on the back of the truck is broken, and light sensors can be activated if cartons are opened while en route. The strategy behind this measure is as follows. The tractor trailer is equipped with a security system comprised of GPS tracking units on the tractor itself, the driver's cell phone, and a padlock securing the cargo. Satellites are used to pinpoint the location of the trailer and any incidents, and they can do that with exact accuracy. Signals are sent from the GPS device, and they're reported to a 24-hour U.S.A. listed central monitoring station. The result by employing this measure is a comprehensive solution to track products and equipment while en route, and more importantly, alerts in the event of an incident. It's important that the load be monitored. A U.S.A. listed central monitoring station can track the load and enact an emergency response script if it is alerted that an incident is occurring. These stations are staffed 24 hours per day, and they typically utilize proprietary software to monitor the unit's locations and any alerts. The vehicle's location and units are continuously tracked and in real time through a web-based interface, and that is accessible to any number of the stakeholders. Here are some more proactive measures you should consider. You could have someone go undercover. Work with a reputable security firm that specializes in undercover investigations. Take on a new hire or hire a summer student and integrate that individual with the demographic and note any irregularities, such as, are there people in the work areas that shouldn't be there? Are they frequently in the maintenance area or perhaps a restricted area? Is someone taking ownership over certain positions they are not responsible for? Is there any talk about petty thefts or pilferage? Are tools and supplies going missing? What is the talk around the water cooler? What is the morale of the employees? Are the security measures being adhered to? Are there frequent visitors at the facility or in the yard that are not employed with the organization? These are all red flags that you should be aware of and investigate further. Many transportation companies have a third-party security firm escort the shipment. Do you? Here's why they do. One reason, vulnerabilities. Cargo of large monetary value and all different commodities is shipped daily. Typically, there is only one driver protecting the cargo, and a truck and trailer offers limited physical barriers. Quite often, cargo travels through the remote, isolated, and high-crime areas, and everything needs to be shipped and is vulnerable to theft. Another reason is legislative. Bill C-45, which became law in March of 2004, stated, everyone who undertakes or has the authority to direct how another person does work or performs a task is under a legal duty to take responsible steps to prevent bodily harm to that person or any other person arising from that work or task. Disregard of this duty resulting in bodily harm or death can result in a charge of criminal negligence. And Bill 168, an act that amended the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and it came into effect in June of 2010. And this bill requires employers to develop violence and harassment policies and programs, employee reporting and incident investigation procedures, emergency response procedures and for violence only, and process to deal with incidents, complaints, and thefts of violence. With a cargo escort, an unmarked vehicle follows and monitors the high-value load. The third party records all stops and crossings, ensures that the proper route is being taken, and ensures that the truck is not left idling or unlocked. This type of measure is especially valuable with cross-border shipments. Any incidents now become a crime in progress, and a crime in progress is considered a higher priority by the authorities. A number of companies with concern about drivers utilize random driver audits. They have a third-party security firm escort the shipment, again in an unmarked vehicle, without the knowledge of the driver. And by doing this, they can covertly follow and watch the driver, ensure all protocols are being followed, that the proper route is being taken, remote areas, lower bridges and such. Rules of the road are being followed, which of course would represent the brand of your company properly, and that they are fueling up at the proper points. Consider implementing a no-stop rule, making it a rule to have drivers drive at least 500 kilometers or somewhere around 4 to 5 hours before stopping after picking up a container. The reason is the tank on a truck is bigger than a tank on a car that may be following it. And this will deter would-be thieves from getting the easy swoop in when drivers stop shortly after leaving the yard. It also allows the driver to observe if there are any potential threats. Another measure is to employ guard services. Check in your yard and check in your area and find a reputable security company that can provide static or physical guard services and security technologies such as closed-circuit TV or access control, remote video monitoring, and unattended guard tours. Make sure you do your due diligence. Does the agency have guard incentive programs? Review the credentials of senior executives of the company. Does the company have experience and expertise that can be applied to your particular industry? Have you visited the company's head office or local office? And does the company actually have an agency union? And this could be a concern if you have employees that belong to a union as well. Your first line of defense often happens in the trailer or the freight yard, and working with a third party, you can ensure that you have adequate physical security. Make sure you have proper perimeter fencing around the yard, concrete barriers, berms, or moats when fencing is not feasible. And if you're not aware, there is an approach that's called CPTED, and it reduces the opportunity for crime. CPTED actually is CPTED, and it stands for Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. I encourage you to take a look at that particular, that program. You also should look at active security cameras in your yard. Make sure your yard is properly lit. Motion detectors can act as a deterrent as well. And then you may also want to consider remote video monitoring. And that's a combination of CCTV, access control, perimeter alarms, and people remotely in control centers monitoring from afar. And they can perform unattended guard tours and remote ID verification, access control, and send voice commands. We recommend that you execute basic safety practices. Keep trucks locked and park them in an organized manner on a well-lit facility lot. Ensure alarm systems are functioning properly and are monitored by a central station that has updated contact information, and review security at your site regularly and quickly address maintenance and repair issues. On the theme of basic security practices, always stay alert. Be aware of surroundings and events. Be familiar with cars parking within the complex. How thorough is the gate security, if you have any? Can vehicles park close to the building? Provide bright lights over entrances. Staying alert is extremely important. Watch for signs that your facility's operation is under surveillance. Watch for unknown vehicles parked outside or within the view of your facility. Watch for individuals holding cameras or taking notes outside your facilities. Unauthorized personnel inside the facility or walking around the perimeter. And vehicles, which are usually minivans or SUVs, especially with handling 2 or more occupants that appear to be following your drivers. You can also go high tech. Mentioned then a variety of technology solutions that can address security, GPS tracking tools, geofencing solutions that can send security alarm if a vehicle travels outside a prescribed route or enters a high-risk area, and vehicle immobilization technology that can be used remotely to disable a stolen vehicle and aid in its recovery. You can also go low-tech too. Proper signage can be an early deterrent. You can also use a variety of locks to secure your vehicle and cargo, Kingpin locks is an example that prevent the trailer and the tractor and the trailer from being separated. Air brake locks prevent brake release, and glad hand locks that lock the trailer's airline. Seals also limit intrusion and can create an alert that doors have been tampered with. You need to be proactive. Execute basic security practices and review them frequently. Use an independent third party to periodically test your security measures. With a breach test, an unfamiliar face attempts to breach your security measures. He or she tests the physical security as well as guard service and the process. And what will this tell you? It will tell you, it will then expose the ease to know, contents of your trailers. Expose the potential for obtaining vital information. Expose the loyalty and diligence of inside employees, and expose potential safety hazards. Our customers have found breach testing to be a very valuable tool. You can also develop a comprehensive training program or work with a security expert to develop a program. Encourage employees to attend training sessions on cargo crimes, load thefts, and truck hijackings so that they can understand what actions they need to take in certain situations. As technology advances, the implementation of new or updated security programs and protocols tend to lag behind, and that gap can be exploited before security catches up. Much of the work in the shipping industry is done behind desks in corporate offices. Just like everything else, the internet has altered the industry. With the advent of online freight boards and online registration cargo criminals are finding ways to jump through the loopholes and commit their crime. We still see trailers getting stolen at truck stops, but we're seeing a shift and they are getting more organized and creative. Currently, criminals set up fictitious trucking companies using false identities of individuals or registered carriers. With an online system, a company can be established, insured, and registered without ever having to show a face. And once registered, the false company can then register with several transportation broker agencies and start trolling the load boards. The crime begins at the pickup, and by the time the crime is realized, it may be days old and there'd be very little chance of recovery. Trucks that are stolen often contain information that can be used to further damage a company in the future. And that information could be as simple as a driver's jacket stolen at a truck stop, which could lead to further company damage. And that's why it's so important to report and put on record all thefts and losses of any kind at any level. Also, any inside information that is possessed by a criminal could convince someone on the other end of the phone. So proprietary paperwork needs to be protected because it can be easily manipulated and reproduced. That is why load boards have to be diligent in who they allow to pick up as carriers or brokers. And in many cases, more background checks are conducted on employees that are employed by the organizations that they deal with. To reduce crime through fraudulent pickup, it is important to record a caller ID if possible, return phone calls to verify the authenticity, speak to the driver and ask for a name and number on the side of the truck, and ask the shipper to check the name and number of the carrier before loading. Identity theft can happen almost anywhere, and most people don't realize it until it's too late and considerable damage is done. A discarded credit card application could be enough to steal one's identity. In the office, make sure to use a reputable shredding company. Ensure someone witnesses all vital documents that are being shredded. At truck stops and fuel stations, watch for double swiping of debit or credit cards. And ensure that internally a proper firewall and virus programs are installed in your IT infrastructure. It is important that personal information can be stolen, important personal information can be stolen from the internet. So make sure that the HTTPS is displayed on the web page you are working with, and the S stands for it being secure. It is also important to educate your employees about how easy it is to steal one's identity and to make sure the lines of communication are kept open. Employees need to be trained on the importance of keeping documents and proprietary information secure. All locations must be aware of any potential breaches. Communication at all levels and with all levels is key. and weekly updates on any incidents in the industry should be readily available to all. As mentioned earlier, cargo theft is often perpetrated with inside help. A recent global study indicated that 75% of companies worldwide suffered from some sort of fraud incident in the past, with the biggest fraud threat coming from within. And while technology has enabled new ways to perpetrate fraud, the old-fashioned means of theft, corruption, bribery, and kickback are still amazingly effective and pervasive. Rigorous pre-employment screening will help weed out those most likely to steal merchandise from a warehouse, a loading dock, or a truck. Sergeant Rob Routers of the RCMP suggested the following in his article. I find it amazing that companies would entrust a driver with a $500,000 load of cargo and truck when you haven't finished your background checks. When you're hiring drivers with faxed applications without face-to-face interviews so you can grab them before the competitor does, you're opening yourself up to all kinds of risk. It is important that a comprehensive, thorough background check is completed on all drivers and employees. There is a new driver qualification product available to the trucking industry, and it is known as ME, Making Eligibility Easy. The ME solution is a web-based solution, and it provides both commercial insurers and transportation companies with a single solution to quickly and cost-effectively qualify a driver. Through this single portal, ME users drive data to the electronic source, and they harvest that data from the sources such as the RCMP database, abstracts, and commercial vehicle driver records. And this product is available from a company called ISB Canada, and they are a member of the Private Motor Truck Council. Also available to the trucking industry from AFIMAC are social media profiling products, investigations, and surveillance. Social media presents a wealth of information, and with powerful tools, information from the World Wide Web can be harvested to determine an applicant or an employee's actions, conduct, behavior out of the office, or what groups or individuals an employee may be associated with. Concerns can be further investigated. Our customers have found this means of investigation to be cost-effective and highly successful. Okay, so finally I'd like to share with you some actions drivers and management can take in response to a crime that will assist with the investigation and recovery. Ultimately, safety is paramount. Drivers need to know that, so no amount of product loss is worth a driver being injured or killed. Drivers should always comply with the robber's demand to ensure their safety, and they should not resist. But drivers need to memorize as many details about the robbery as they can. Make sure they write them down at their first opportunity for law enforcement and for your own investigation. After the incident, as soon as feasibly possible, the driver should report the incident to both law enforcement and to your company. Utilize a robbery description form. The form leads the victim through a systematic process of recalling important facts and observations from head to toe. By using such a form, you give the driver the opportunity to organize their thoughts on paper. The form is broken into sections, including descriptions of physical attributes, identifiable clothing, comments that were made, accents that they heard, description of the vehicle and the weapon used, if any. The form should be used independently by the driver, and the form will become evidence and turned over to law enforcement and the company investigator. And here's an example of the report. I know that the text is very small, but there are sections for physical attributes, identifiable clothing, physical characteristics, and areas for remarks about comments, accents, and names used. Also, other information that is captured. Methods of operation. Was there a disguise? Did they touch anything? What was the motor vehicle, and what type of weaponry was used? Drivers should also have a robbery procedure card, and it's a very helpful card to have on hand. The card covers steps which should be taken by the driver immediately after the theft or incident is over and the perpetrator or perpetrators have left the scene. Having the steps in writing can make a very difficult task easier, as you can imagine the emotional state the driver is in after an incident. If it is produced wallet side, wallet size, the card can be kept on the driver's person. And here's sort of an example. Activate the alarm, use the cell phone, call 911, briefly describe the situation, notify the dispatcher that you've been hijacked, secure the scene, ensure nothing is touched, discuss the robbery only with those that are from law enforcement or your own investigator, and fill out then the robbery description form that we were talking about earlier. To be extremely careful, okay, so another thing that they can do, of course, is load information. And you need to be very careful with that information because if it falls into the wrong hands, it can be very dangerous. And in the event of a crime, make sure you receive all the details for the tractor and trailer, including any identifying marks, logos, fleet numbers, etc. If a GPS tracking system is being used, it is essential to contact police dispatch and advise them that the load is being tracked and monitored. And as I mentioned earlier, a stolen load with GPS tracking unit would be considered a crime in progress. And this is given a highest priority with full police response. And that response could include multiple cars, K9, and even call to the crime unit investigators. Make sure that you obtain the bill of ladings. Obtain detailed information on the stolen commodity. Include any identifying information such as serial numbers, models, quantities, and value. The more information you have, the better. And if you can provide pictures of the product, that helps tremendously as well. Employee information is another aspect. Determine, if possible, the names of all employees who had access to the load, the manifest, who loaded the cargo to the trailer, the driver who delivered or dropped off the load. Make it a policy so that no one feels targeted, that in a situation, the policy states this, then just collect the information. If possible, obtain the names of employees who were recently fired or reprimanded for disciplinary reasons, or were passed by for a promotion. They may be suspect in the crime. Review any persons of interest, any personnel files to determine previous employment with trucking companies or warehouses where other cargo thefts have occurred. And review employee work schedules for the time period of the theft to determine if any persons of interest changed shifts or called in sick when the theft occurred. Review company cellular telephone records for employee or drivers who are using work cell phones that had direct contact with the load. Determine if any suspicious incoming or outgoing calls or texts were made prior to the theft. Be aware of any employees that have recently made any large purchases prior to the incident that may be having financial difficulty or after the incident. Have your special investigations unit interview the driver or potential witnesses, or have a security specialist with expertise in interviewing techniques do it for you. You're doing that to determine the exact route traveled, identify a timeline of events prior to the theft, and any key information that may identify a suspect or vehicle. Interview the driver and the witness or the witness with using open-ended questions to help recall and extract information. And it's important to disseminate information. Intelligence sharing is the key to thwarting cargo thieves. Communicating information quickly between private sector, insurers, and law enforcement is important. And it's also about making direct contact with the right people. The more eyes and ears that know about the stolen load, the better chance of locating it. Information needs to be disseminated in a timely fashion. And with the permission of the cargo crime investigator, you can circulate information by email to police and insurance groups. With cargo theft, time is of the essence. Posting immediate be on the lookout alerts are very helpful, and getting in touch with the right people quickly is key to getting the alerts out faster. It is possible to circulate, if it's possible, circulate photographs of the stolen property, because as we know, pictures speak 1,000 words. Add the cargo theft information to trucking network internet group sites or blogs, and in some cases, communication through media releases and calls to Crime Stoppers can be tremendously effective. And finally, when it comes to stolen commodities, check sites such as eBay or Kijiji or similar internet auction sites for sale of stolen property. Check local large flea markets and vendors that are selling similar clothing or electronic products. Check small and medium-sized vendors that may be selling these high-risk products at discounted or high-value products at discounted prices. These deals are not comparable, and these products that are not locally available are usually red flags. So that actually then concludes my presentation. Over the past 50 minutes, I've given an overview of cargo crime and provided some statistics and findings about the types of commodities that are being stolen, talked about the components of effective security audit and what you can do then and work with security professionals, organizations such as AFIMAC, identified some proactive measures you should consider to address security concerns and to help prevent cargo crime at your facilities. And finally, I provided some suggestions on what you can do in response to a crime that will assist in the investigation and recovery of stolen assets. Now, I'm just looking at the clock. We have a few more minutes, and just wondering if there's anyone that may have submitted a question. We are on mute at the present time. Okay, well then, thank you very much. And on behalf of AFIMAC and our sister companies, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to address you. It's been a pleasure presenting this material. And if you have any questions, or if you would like to get a hold of me or the members of the team here to learn more about cargo security services that we provide, you can reach us at the following. Again, I'm Ron Hartman. I'm available at 1-800-313-9170, and our website is afimacglobal.com. Okay, actually, I do see then a question. Let me see if I can. Okay, it was a thank you. And yes, thank you very much, everybody. I really do appreciate that you've given us the time to do this. Again, have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.